my clients that if you have not been on trial for murder or rape, going to court for a child custody trial will be the worst experience of your life. But, you know, to get around that and to solve the child custody problems, there are many things available. The court has free mediation available through the Court of Conciliation.
By the way, we're having Grace,
Grace Hawkins from the
Grace
Court
is a
of
future guest that we're going to have on the show.
Right. She's the director of the Court of Conciliation, and they don't mediate anything other than the custody and the visitation schedule. They don't mediate. You could hire a private mediator for the other things, but the court will not mediate child custody, alimony, property division, and they have a very high success rate. Also, there are child psychologists practicing in Tucson who function more or less as mediators. It's not as formal of a mediation process as probably what you folks do and as what the mediators that have been guests on your show do, but they meet with the parents, meet with the children, help them work it out. You can also get what's called a child custody evaluation, in which a child psychologist will meet with each parent, will meet with the children if they're old enough, will meet with the parent and the children, usually not both parents together and the children, although I guess they could. Sometimes they'll do psychological testing, they'll talk to teachers, Sunday school teachers, whoever has information.
The children get an attorney here?
The children can have an attorney, but it's not routine. If there's a particular reason to have an attorney for the child, an attorney can be appointed.
What would be a reason that they would be an attorney for a child?
A high conflict divorce, a divorce in which the two parties are telling radically different stories. And we have, under the Arizona Rules of Family Law Procedure, or RFLAP, we had to come up with some short reference names, so it's RFLAP.
I always like acronyms.
Which are statewide rules. We have different kinds of people that can be appointed. A strictly speaking attorney for the child is supposed to argue for what the child wants. A best interest attorney is supposed to argue for what he or she thinks is in the best interest of the child. We also can have a parenting coordinator who's either a lawyer or a psychologist appointed by the court to be, well, it's under what used to be called a special master, which no one watching the show will know, but you'll probably know, who gathers information, hears both people's points of view, and makes some decisions which are then either approved by the court or the court could, you know, overturn them. So we have a lot, and this is really the area in which family law practice of the traditional type, the adversary type, if you will, is growing and changing the most.
In what way?
It used to be all we had was attorney for the children. Now we have all those different roles that I just described. We are structuring into the system third parties who have expertise who can help to deal with the issues regarding the children in order to keep the case out of the courtroom. This is a little bit analogous to, in a collaborative divorce, you have coaches, and you may have a coach for the children in addition to the coaches for the parties. It's the same sort of a thing. Nobody wants to have a child custody trial. I make a nice amount of money per hour. I assure you it is not enough to make it worth going to court and spending days in a courtroom in which two people who used to love each other are saying the most awful, hateful things they can say about each other. Everybody wants to avoid that.
I think it's correct. I mean, it seems to me that the children can be very damaged by an adversary divorce, and I've sometimes said to people, if you can't have a good marriage, at least have a good divorce, and do that. And sometimes the divorce, they're better off divorced than they are doing it that way. How would somebody go about picking an attorney? A traditional attorney or a divorce attorney? And
no matter what kind of attorney you're talking about. Picking a mediator, picking a collaborative lawyer, whatever. The first and most important tip is talk to your friends. If your friend had a divorce and had a good experience with his or her lawyer, that's probably very important information. Now, you need to be sophisticated enough to realize that if your situation is different from your friend's situation, like if your friend's case mainly involved children, and you have no children, but you have a business, and there are going to be complicated issues about what the business is worth, maybe your friend's lawyer wouldn't be that great for your case. But anyway, referrals from your friends is absolutely the top thing.
You had mentioned earlier, and we said we were going to get back to it, and we didn't, about being
certified specialist. Yeah. The next thing to do is to go to the Arizona State Bar website, which I should have had you do a card on that.
Well, once again, if you check, check our website.
You might have misspelled it.
I might have misspelled it.
Anyway, it's real easy. It's www.azbar.org, and there's a list there of lawyers that are certified specialists in family law. Certified specialists have to have practiced for a certain number of years. For a certain number of those years, have to have devoted a majority of their time to family law. They have to have handled a certain number of settlements. They have to have handled a certain number of trials. There's a peer review process conducted in which we send out questionnaire forms to lawyers and judges who have been involved in those lawyers' cases. We check their discipline record, and they have to pass a written test, which I write. So, I mean,
how many attorneys in the Tucson area are?
I think we've got 71 statewide, or 70 some, and in the Tucson area, I believe it's 20 some. The other things to look into is whether the lawyer is a fellow of the Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers, and that's kind of like the honor society for divorce law. And then kind of more selective than that is whether the lawyer is listed in Best Lawyers in America. And there are only 8.
And one of the reasons we've liked having you on the show is you meet all those criteria.
I do meet all of those, and there are only 8 of those of us in Tucson. But if anybody goes to my website, www.stompoli,
let's put it on the screen.
But that's STOMPOLY.com.
There's our running joke here.
Right, there it is. You can look at my resume there, and you'll see the names of the groups, and you can just do searches under those groups to find other members. But
before I forget, our information is at the bottom of the screen too, which is spelled correctly, I think.
It is, yeah. TVAZ, there it is. Divorce TVAZ. And with all of that said, even more important than your referrals from your friends, which I said was most important, more important than that is you meet with the lawyer and judge how the chemistry is.
That's a good question to meet with. Did lawyers charge for that initial consultation, or how does that work?
I charge for that. Some lawyers don't. Some lawyers, frankly, they give away a free session because, you know, it's a way to get business. But, you know, I've been fortunate. My firm had a call-in radio show in Tucson for 16 years, and I've been practicing for 33 years. And if I gave a free initial consultation to everybody that called and wanted one, I could spend my whole day on free initial consultations and not get them all done. So, you know, I would tell the listeners that the fact that the lawyer charges for the first session is not necessarily a reason to avoid that lawyer.
The one thing I used to find people realize is that you can disqualify a lawyer too, and I've seen people sometimes go around and try to disqualify the attorney so their spouse can't get that attorney.
That's right, and that's another reason that lawyers charge for initial consultations, because there are some people who've already picked their lawyer, but now they're going to go around and have an appointment with all of the other prominent divorce lawyers in town to create a conflict of interest.
It's been a great show, Jim, and we're beginning to run out of time. Oh
my goodness, we barely started.
We barely started. We should have done an hour show instead of a half-hour show. But before we do that, I want to make sure there's anything else that you want to add before we start wrapping up here, and things that I didn't ask that you'd like to talk about. No, we've got about a minute left.
I think we've covered pretty much everything that I would think was important.
I just had one quickie question on that, and is how do you feel about parties negotiating themselves when they have attorneys?
Oh, I think it's fine. I think that they should both make clear to each other that whatever we agree on between us isn't binding until our attorneys have approved it. But I did just have a case, a big case, in which the parties made their own agreement, initialed it, you know, signed it up, and the other party tried to back out.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but we are really running right
anyway,
on time.
The judge upheld the agreement.
That's good. I want to thank Jim Stroud for appearing tonight. Apologize for getting your website wrong, but you'll get it right on our website, which is quickly at the bottom of the screen. And this has been Divorce TV with your host, Wally Marcus, and our special guest, James Stroud. Thank you and good night.
Okay. Oh, my God, that went so fast.